Microsoft says a group of Russian-backed hackers launched another cyber attack on U.S. government and foreign agencies. It comes weeks before President Biden is set to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The hackers are said to have used an email system utilized by the State Department's aid agency, USAID, to carry out their attack. CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Zhang has the latest.
The group behind the brazen hack is known as Nobelium, linked to Vladimir Putin's intelligence unit and the mastermind of the historic SolarWinds cyber attack last year. This time, Microsoft said the hackers targeted approximately 3,000 individual accounts at more than 150 organizations using emails like this one that appeared to be from the government agency USAID. The sender address even looked authentic. Today, the White House said the hack does not change the president's plan to meet with Putin in Switzerland in 3 weeks.
We're going to have a meeting in Switzerland not too long from now.
President Biden sanctioned the Russians after the devastating SolarWinds attack, which spread to 18,000 government and private computer networks. But the hacks have continued. Cybersecurity expert Jim Lewis said Moscow wants to see how much it can get away with.
The Russians don't seem interested in stopping it. That's why it's important. It's an informational warfare, and right now they have the upper hand.
Tonight, Russia is denying allegations that it was involved in the hack, calling the claims abstract. The White House is downplaying what happened as basic phishing, but said that federal cybersecurity officials are monitoring the incident closely. Lana?
Weijia, thank you. For more, I want to bring in Sean Sullivan. He's a CBS News political contributor and White House reporter for The Washington Post. Sean, how is the White House responding to this latest cyber attack, and what does it mean for President Biden's upcoming meeting with Vladimir Putin?
Well, Lana, their strategy seems to be to not really raise huge alarm bells about this incident, make it, give the impression that they have this under control, that this was a pretty basic attack. And I think they don't want to sort of upset the situation, add turbulence to the dynamic between the United States and Russia in advance of this meeting, which I think a lot of people are going to be watching. But what this incident reminds everybody is that there's a lot of distrust between the two sides, between the two governments, between the American people and Russia. And the president is going to come under a lot of pressure, not just from Republicans, but from Democrats, to stand up to Putin, to press him on tough questions about cybersecurity and other things. And this is the one in a string of incidents that I think we're going to see Biden under a lot of pressure to demand answers from Putin, to say, what are you doing to stop this? What are you doing to combat this kind of thing? What do you know about this incident? So it's something that I think will ramp up pressure on Biden to take a hard line and to ask hard questions of Putin when he meets with him in just a few weeks here.
Sean, let's switch topics to talk about another big issue that's coming out of D.C. right now. The White House released President Biden's budget for 2022 on Friday. It's $6 trillion. Tell us what are some of the proposals included in it. And as I understand it, there's already some things that are likely going to have Republicans really against this budget. Let's get into it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things to keep in mind about this budget is the way the White House is rolling it out. It's the Friday before a holiday weekend, a long weekend. This is not a time you roll something out that you want to promote widely. So it's very clear that this is not necessarily something they want to talk about. The biggest takeaway when you look at this, politically speaking, is the size of this budget. As you mentioned, $6 trillion. This is a pretty sweeping investment in government spending, the likes of which we haven't really seen, even from Democratic presidents, even from the Obama administration. It also signals that, that the era of focusing on deficits and debt in the United States, that's just not something that is central right now in the Democratic Party. What they're focused on is sweeping government spending, combating poverty, and instituting programs to help people recover from the pandemic. Of course, a big part of what the White House is proposing is their infrastructure plan, and they're proposing trillions of dollars in new spending on infrastructure to rebuild not just physically the infrastructure of the United States, roads, bridges, but other initiatives that they hope will help the American people. And that's already become controversial. A lot of Republicans say what you guys define as infrastructure That's not the traditional definition of infrastructure. You're trying to go above and beyond, and you're trying to create this wish list of democratic priorities that goes outside the bounds of what the American people want. And that's set up this political debate right now. But really the takeaway here is really the level of spending that we have seen this administration commit to. You look at their COVID relief plan, nearly $2 trillion. You look at what they're proposing on infrastructure, another couple $1 trillion. And you look at the overall budget framework, $6 trillion. These are massive numbers that we're talking about. And they really do, mark a departure from what we've seen in both parties in terms of, how much money the federal government is willing to spend to combat a lot of the problems going on around the country.
Yeah, really interesting how much both parties have changed in that respect. Sean, the budget also omitted funding for the Hyde Amendment, which banned federal funding for most abortions. How significant is this, and how have Republicans been responding?
Well, this is very significant, and this is something that the president is using to send a signal to abortion rights activists that he stands with them. This is not a position that President Biden has always taken. When you look back at his record, this was something that he supported in the past. But now he's clearly saying that he stands with abortion rights activists. And so this is something that is going to, and already is going to stoke a partisan debate. Criticism from Republicans. We can expect to see more of that. This is an issue, abortion, that has divided the parties pretty significantly over the years. There's no sign that that is going to ease up anytime soon. And Biden is signaling that he stands with where the majority of the Democratic Party, where the majority of his party is right now. I think had he not taken this step, there would be a huge amount of outrage in the Democratic Party. He would be dealing with a lot of anger from his own, members of Congress and governors and people in his party. So what he's doing here is standing with the bulk of his party, and it shows you, where today's Democratic Party is, where this president is. And again, Biden, somebody who's had a decades-long career in politics, it's not always a position that he's had, and it shows you, how he's moved on the issue as well over time.
I wonder, Sean, does it also say something about how the administration expects the economy to grow in 2022? And what does that mean for Democrats as they head into a competitive midterm election cycle?
Yeah, it really does, Lana. And we're already seeing this debate materialize where on the one side, Democrats are taking a pretty optimistic approach to the economy. They're saying, look, we are on the upswing. The spending that we have proposed, the spending that we've already invested is going to work. It's going to put people back to work. It's going to create new jobs. It's going to help people recover from this pandemic. On the other side, you see Republicans point to some troubling signs, concerns about inflation, concerns about a labor shortage. What their argument is essentially that all of this government spending, this, it's pretty sweeping investment that this administration is making and trying to make in the future is causing problems to the economy. It's going to cause inflation. It's going to cause, problems for employers to hire. They say that, the unemployment benefits that the Biden administration has provided are too generous. It's becoming an incentive for people to not seek to go back to the workforce. So we're seeing a really stark divide right now. And I think this could be one of the central debates in the midterm elections is, did this president put the economy back on track? Did all of this government spending work? Did it help people? Or did it stress the economy? Did it create new pressure points for businesses and for the American people? And when you look at the dividing line, it's pretty stark because you haven't seen any Republicans really come on board with the Biden economic plan. They tried to get some Republicans to support his COVID relief bill. Not a single one did. They're trying right now on infrastructure. We still haven't seen anybody budge. So it's a pretty stark divide right now between the Democrats and the Republicans. And if the president doesn't get any Republican support for his infrastructure bill, this is a pretty, clean debate in the midterms where you have one side totally lined up against the other.
Let me ask you about that really quickly in the time that we have left, because there was an important meeting on Friday to discuss Republicans' counteroffer to President Biden's infrastructure proposal. How close are the two sides to reaching an agreement at this point?
It doesn't look like they're very close at all right now, Lana. I can't find anybody that I've talked to on either side who thinks that a deal is close. They're still really far apart on two things. One, they disagree on the size of this proposal. There's really big disagreements on how much money to spend. And then also how to pay for it. The Democrats are proposing raising taxes on the wealthy. The Republicans are saying, look, we shouldn't be raising taxes. We need to find other ways to pay for this. So you've got a really, really big divide here. There's been a lot of talks, calls, meetings in the Oval Office, but we haven't really seen any breakthroughs. And so it looks like we may be headed to where we were on the COVID relief bill, which is that maybe not a single Republican will support this thing, and this will have to pass along party lines for Biden and the Democrats.
All right. Sean Sullivan, as always, thank you.
Thanks.